use our logo, spin it in and say, hey, you're welcome and you're live on Spin Legal with Invictus Legal. And this is episode number 37 with myself, Peter Giblett, and her, Angela Browne. Good morning, Angela. Good evening, Angela. How are you doing?
Oh, pretty good.
Right, so tonight we're talking about a subject which we don't really do very much, but it has a legal implication, which is landlord insurance and renters insurance. There are two separate things. So if you rent a property, if you rent a property to somebody, you probably need to know about, if you're a landlord, you need to know about landlord insurance. And if you're a renter, you need to know about tenant insurance. So pay attention.
Exactly.
I will learn something. I will learn something, and you will learn something. I think we'll all learn something.
Exactly, particularly with the way that a lot of cases are going before the landlord-tenant board and some things that are happening between landlords and tenants. Some of these things are essential for both sides to know.
Yeah,
for their own
absolutely.
protection when they're in a situation.
Okay, so if you need to contact Invictus Legal, you can do so at on 905-688-5598. You can email Angela at weareinvictus.legal and me at peter@weareinvictus.legal. And our website is weareinvictus.legal. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they get the formalities out the way, and let's look at the questions. So, landlord and renters insurance, what is it and how does it impact your property? And this should be important to you whether you're a renter, because you have an interest in that property, what's the worst that can happen on any given day? The worst that can happen, and let's be very clear, nobody here wishes that on anybody.
Exactly.
Right? The worst that could happen is your house could burn down. You could suffer from an earthquake. You could have a tornado, or something like that, which is terminal and ends your tenancy, ends the house, brings everything is fatal.
To a roaring stop.
Yeah, and basically that is bad for a landlord, and that is bad for a tenant. And
absolutely.
There are absolute reasons why. There's obvious why, because the landlord doesn't earn any money, tenant's got nowhere to live. Right? Clear problem there, right?
Yeah.
We don't wish that upon anybody, but insurance is here to make it better.
At least alleviate some of it if such things do happen, and to at least provide some compensation.
And in part, the worst isn't going to happen. In part, you're going to suffer. The most likelihood of something happening is a minor flood or something like that.
Yeah.
Vast majority of people, toilet backup, minor floods, those kinds of things, electrical outages, all of that should be covered. Possible to be covered under insurance. So let's look at that for each individual party, because there are slight differences in for the landlord and for the tenant, and we can then look at the end of that as to should you be insured. It's a valid question, right? So for landlords, and so let's first of all point out this is different from standard homeowners insurance. I got homeowners insurance, you've got homeowners insurance from the house I own, and my homeowners insurance covers things like, it can cover things like floods, it can cover things like power outages, it could cover anything that might go wrong in if a plane falls on my house, it's going to cover it, right?
Oh. It would run your Jeep right into the house, and
it would probably cover some of that. It doesn't necessarily mean it will cover all of it.
Or maybe the Jeep insurance will have to cover the rest.
Yeah. Hi, Robert. Welcome.
Hey, Robert.
We always love you being here, Robert.
Yeah.
Okay.
The difference between homeowners insurance and landlord's insurance is very clear. So if you're a landlord, you own your own home, but you also own another home at the other side of town that you rent out to tenants. And what's important is there are different risks when you have tenants than if it's just your own home. From your own home, you're protected from fire, flood, planes landing on, jeeps driving through, different things like that that we just talked about. And now, when you're talking about other house that you own that's on the other side, you have tenants. Sometimes you get to be the lucky landlord who gets to start cursing at the board, the landlord-tenant board, because because the tenant stayed there for several months without paying rent, but then they decide that they're going to destroy the place, have indoor fireworks, and different types of things that they do, and
Well,
damages that the tenants do. And your insurance, if you have landlord insurance, will cover you for the damages that are done.
yeah.
They also cover you in certain circumstances, like if you have to make some mandatory repairs, like say, if your place isn't up to code, the city puts an order on it, you have to have the tenants move out for a little bit. It gives you money so that the tenants can stay at a hotel for a little while you're doing the necessary
Okay.
work.
But okay, so if I'm a landlord and I'm renting out my house and I'm living in Timbuktu, and I've got only my homeowner's insurance, why is that not sufficient?
Because you're not running your house as a business. Okay? When you're renting your home out to a tenant somewhere, it's run as a business, and then you're taking some chances because, like, unless you're into destroying your own property, okay, which I doubt. Okay, most homeowners don't want to destroy their own property, but some tenants are very disrespectful to landlord's property because we're first of all, it's not theirs. They just think, oh well, I'm going to get away with it because I'll disappear and I will just have a midnight move or something and they'll leave, right? So, but the difference here is that you need some protection here just in case. So you make a claim to your insurance. Tenant does $15,000 or $20,000 worth of damages to your home.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
you don't have the money to pay that up all the time.
Yeah.
So this is why the insurance people call. So you call the insurance and they send people there to do an assessment of how it can be fixed or repaired in a cost-effective manner so that you could rent it out again. Okay.
Yeah,
And
and just to be
also rent coverage when you're not getting the rent because of something like this. There's
well,
some coverage
we'll
that could
come
be.
on to those in a minute. I
Yeah.
just want to also add that personal, when you've got a homeowner's insurance policy, it covers a lot more personal liability. It covers things like if you personally slip or fall on your property,
Or
you're
against.
you're building, yeah, or a guest, you're building a deck and you fall through the decking and
Or you
have,
use your knees to put the deck down and you hurt your knees.
yeah, and those kinds of things
Yeah.
are covered under your personal home insurance policy.
Mhm.
Whereas that sort of stuff would not be covered under a landlord insurance.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
those things are exclusively for your homeowner's insurance. And
Yeah.
the same as when you have another home, you would have your homeowner's insurance and landlord insurance.
Yeah.
Like the fire gets caught in the house and burns the place down, your homeowner's insurance for the other place should help you. But if your tenants had a wild party one night and you got holes in the walls and fireworks inside, things like that, then there's a landlord insurance and they kick in. So there's different types of liabilities that you have when you have renting out to a third party.
Absolutely.
And
Okay.
Airbnbs, you have to have specific insurance too for that.
Yeah.
I don't know whether Airbnb covers it or whether you have to pay for
Well,
that.
you can get extended. You can get bed and breakfast type insurance. You can get vacation rental type insurance.
Yeah.
There are different policies, and you can and that's actually a very valid question, because you can get those, or you can extend your homeowner's insurance to
Yeah,
cover some
especially
of
if you
those.
have Airbnb in your own home.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a
All right.
secondary
But
use.
that's not really about landlord and tenant. So let's
But these
cover.
are things that you have to pay attention.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at getting these insurances, talk to your insurance agent about all the possible risks that you might anticipate happening. Tenant
Okay.
damage, tenants in motels, bylaw infractions where you have to get it fixed, different things like that. You have to pay attention. make sure things are put in there that would be unanticipated perils that could happen, and they could put it in. If it's not there already, they can add something called a rider, which would put it in.
Yeah.
Okay? And that protects you, gives you extra coverage for something that's not normally included in the packages that are provided for that area of insurance.
And by the way, you may also know of it as rental property insurance. It is the same thing
Yeah.
as landlord insurance.
And
Okay.
there are some landlord insurances that are out there that also cover legal fees. If you need to get rid of a tenant and you're having difficulties because, like, you can easily bring in a pest control to get rid of cockroaches, bed bugs, whatever you have, mice, or the SPCA if there's animals that are not being looked after properly. But it's the two-legged ones that are sometimes the most difficult ones. And, if you do have to come across and evict them, and sometimes it
Well,
takes a while to do it, or you may not necessarily have a clear-cut case where the board would take it right away. Like maybe they're paying their rent on time, but they're doing everything else to irritate you and drive you crazy, and you need the
yeah,
boat.
yeah.
So there's rental, they cover some of the legal fees.
And obviously things like what landlord insurance covers damage to the property.
Yep.
So such as walls, floors, fixtures, heating, cooling systems, furniture if the place is furnished. And these might well be detailed within the terms of the policy. So you have to look at what your policy details are and understand them. And obviously, if you're going to include more, probably the insurance on a furnished um, rental unit is going to be more than the insurance on an unfurnished rental unit.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something that's very important, is to talk to your rental agent or your insurance agent, to speak to them about what types of insurance they are offering in your policy,
Yeah.
and ask them if there's additional riders that could be added. And the riders don't usually cost a whole lot more, but they do cost a bit more to do
Yeah,
them.
you've
But
got
it's
things.
important to have them.
Yeah, and you've got things like fires, explosion, wind damage, and you can identify dollar limits on each of
Yeah,
those.
or you may want to hike the dollar limits. Like, say,
Yeah,
if you have, if you're renting out a home that's furnished and the furniture in there is very nice furniture, you bought it from Catelli's or something, and they're very nice furniture, and you're renting it out as an
you
executive.
think I'm going to rent? You think I'm going to rent my house out with Cratelli furniture? Not going to happen.
One chair costs about $5,000.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But there are people that do. There are executive
Oh,
rentals.
I know there are.
Like, I'm coming to Toronto because I have a project that I'm working for in a month, and I pick up an executive rental and I'm staying there. But then something happens, and I just spend one time for a party, and something happens, and I break one of the chairs. Hey, that insurance will cover you.
And the other question about this one is, it ensures lost rental income. The lost rental income is replaced if tenants need to vacate for any reason. So this might well be that there's a flood, there's a fire, there's any number of reasons why the tenants may need to be out tomorrow. It will cover you for things like hotel stays if the tenant needs to move to a hotel while you're fixing it because there's a flood. It also covers you if the tenant suddenly moves out, gives you 60 days notice, but yet is gone tomorrow because they got a brand new job in Silicon Valley.
Yep. Yep. Or you're like, there's a lot of reasons why they do it, and it's usually for unexpected reasons or for
Yeah.
reasons associated with perils. Hey,
Yeah.
why the tenant would be the rent would be compensated.
Yeah. And in addition to that, there's legal liabilities if you're it covers you for legal liabilities for injuries or property damage to a third party who may be visiting the tenant, or maybe I guess that could that include workers who are working for you?
Yep. Like say the tenant's complaining that their toilet's plugged up and then you send a plumber to the property. The plumber walks into the house and slips and falls, trips over the tenant's cat, and injures himself.
Yeah.
That would cover that.
Yeah. Or I was just about to say that, hey, the plumber slips down the sink and gets swallowed up in the drain. Just to be a bit ironic. Okay. So here's an important question on all of that. There seems to be a lot that the landlord insurance covers. So does a tenant really still need to have tenant insurance?
Absolutely. Especially if the same perils happen and the tenant's in there. They have a fire, they have a flood, they have various things happen within the unit that can affect or damage the tenant's own possessions, their own valuables. Where, like, say, for instance, it could destroy all their furniture. Like if you're in a flood, you lose all your furniture. You're living in a basement apartment. Or a fire takes place and you're losing some of your.
So now we're talking about the tenant losing all their Critelli furniture.
Yep, exactly. If the tenant wants to buy Critelli furniture, okay, then they have to put a special rider on it because of the value of the furniture, okay, that or have a higher limit. Okay, so that's one of the things that is very important. So as a tenant, your landlord insurance does not cover your contents.
Okay, so
your contents have to be covered by your own insurance, as well as your own, as well as by people that you invite over. You're going to invite your 97-year-old mother over to visit, and you're going to have a tea with her, and then she slips and falls. Right? So you want to have some protection.
Stop causing people to slip and fall, Angela.
This happens. Yeah. Or they trip over your cat.
You have to, unfortunately, when it comes to insurance, this is one of these cases whereby you have to look at the worst case event. Yeah. And it is better with landlord and tenant insurance to have something covered by the landlord and something covered by the tenant as well.
Yeah.
Because in fact, the losses by a landlord, in the case of a rental unit catching fire, for example, nobody's killed, nobody's harmed, everybody got out, the cat got out, the dog got out, the goldfish got out, right?
The goldfish.
But the point being, well, I'm sorry, I have to support Donald Trump here. He supports our cats and dogs.
He wants to protect them from being eaten.
Yeah, we've got to protect them from being eaten. Same with goldfish, right? Mm-hmm. Mind you, I'm not so sure I'd recommend taking your goldfish out if it's minus 28 outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? They don't get along very well in the snow.
Okay, but so what is tenant insurance? It's really there to cover aspects that, it's to cover aspects that various risks that relate to tenants that generally things like belongings are covered by that insurance. Some of tenant insurance might well cover risks, as you say, things like slip and fall. For example, the tenant's grandmother comes over, she slips in the hallway on the dangerous puddle because the goldfish got out of the goldfish bowl.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Refrigerator.
Yeah. And the whole point is that, hey, these sort of things happen. We don't wish them to happen, but they do. And that's why it's there, because there's risks such as items, belongings covered against damage from fire, water, theft, etc., etc. But we asked a question before: does a tenant really need it?
Yeah, they do.
Okay, so
people always think, oh, this isn't going to happen, and usually when people think that way, that's when it happens. Okay, and then they say, oh, I wish I had insurance. Now I just lost everything.
Yeah, and in fact, actually, that's an important point. It wasn't one of my hearings, but there was a hearing at a landlord and tenant board hearing a few weeks ago that I attended, I was waiting for my case to come up, and I didn't hear the whole of the case, but what actually happened was that there was tenants that didn't have the tenant insurance, and therefore they were claiming the properties. And essentially, the adjudicator at the Landlord and Tenant Board was saying, well, if you didn't have insurance, you can't blame the fact that you didn't have insurance upon the landlord and be claiming your $17,000 worth of damaged property from the landlord.
Yeah, because if their own personal property, their furniture, their electronics, or different things get damaged, that's tenant insurance.
Yeah.
The other thing with tenant insurance is that the tenants themselves may also have to get enhancements on their insurance or special riders in certain circumstances. Like, say, if you own that old family gold heirloom from their grandparents, which very valuable jewelry, and you want to keep that for their children, that could be pretty pricey. So you might want to have a special rider for that. As well, if you have higher cost furniture, like if you do shop at Curtelli's and have very nice fancy furniture, and that's where you have to have a higher limit for your furniture.
Well,
and there's also if you work at home.
Okay, we'll cover each of those in a minute. So here, I just want to pause for a second and insert, if I may, an advert by Curtelli's Furniture from St. Catharines. I've been told they're the best.
Yeah, like tell Joe, I said that he's got free advertising.
Yeah, and he should pay us for the advertising slot.
Yeah, exactly. I hope so. Hear that, Joe?
Yeah, and you know her. You know she's coming after you. So pay up.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about, I've looked up some tenant insurance today, and a couple of things that I did note on the couple that I saw, they've got, for want of a better word, standard coverage and optional extras. So let's talk about standard coverage. Basically, that I think starts really with something like belongings, and covered against damage from fire, theft, water, and more. That might also cover
Mold.
Pardon me?
Mold.
Yep. I was going to say it might also cover things to ensure that illegal activity, wear and tear may well be covered on some of those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting question is that if, for example, you actually have a computer that you use for work, theoretically that would be covered in this rider. But what if you dropped it down the stairs at work?
Yeah, this is where you have to be really, really careful, because when you are setting yourself up for tenants insurance, make sure you talk to your agent. They'll want to know a lot of things. If you work at home or if you have a home-based business, they'll want to know that, because you want to have an extra rider to protect any equipment you have or any space, for a home-based business.
Yeah, and we have to think about all of those sort of things.
Yeah.
And for example, when we're talking about theft, we could be talking about theft, for example, of things like, and some of these equipment that you've got might well be quite valuable.
Yeah.
We talked there about personal computer. Further, you could be talking about, we talked about our friends across the road at Curtelli's and their furniture. You could also be talking about jewelry that was passed down by your great grandmother, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those sort of things could be worth thousands of dollars, and a lot of those are covered under additional liability, but you would have to discuss those with your broker.
Yeah. And what you do is they sign what they call a rider, and the insurance company puts that extra on top of your insurance. So you get extra insurance to cover that. So if something happens with those things, then that rider will kick in.
Okay. So personal liability, what's that?
Personal liability, that's like somebody slips, falls. There's an issue with something happens with one of your guests on the property to do with something, either one of your belongings, okay? Or you're working up there, you just take a ladder that you own and you're going up there to unscrew a light bulb and then you fall off the ladder. Things like that. You have to.
So that has similarities to a homeowner's insurance,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
So you have to make sure things are very, like, be very, very cautious when you are getting an insurance policy, because you want to make sure that all of your losses would be covered.
Okay.
And they don't cost a whole lot more to get the extra riders.
Okay, in terms of things like personal liability, this is an important question here, because obviously a homeowner's insurance, if I as a homeowner climb onto my, get a ladder or climb onto my roof to repair some missing tiles that are on the roof, there's a certain type of liability that's covered under that.
Yep.
Is that kind of personal liability covered under a tenant's insurance?
I think the tenant would have to be, if they are doing this, that's why they have landlords and why they have tenants. Tenants are not generally liable for the repair of the building and for wear and tear.
Yeah.
But sometimes tenants get into an arrangement with the landlord and they will handle the maintenance, because maybe the tenant is a handy person, has his own little contracting firm, and doesn't mind doing that stuff for the house.
So that's
why you have to negotiate with the landlord about that type of thing to make sure that that is covered, okay, so that you're protected. The other thing
that's
you have to look at personal liability. What if you have a dog? Like you have one of those pit bull terriers or a cane corso or a German shepherd dog that like you have them at home, they're friendly, they've always been friendly dogs, but then suddenly woof woof woof, the door opens, somebody walks in, the dog doesn't know, the dog jumps at him, bites.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be held back.
To go back briefly to the handyman who's the renter, presumably though that handyman will already have a third-party insurance for his own handyman business, most likely.
If they have a business. If they don't have a business but just happen to have skills, that's where they have to negotiate with the landlord.
Yeah. Okay.
So be very, very careful about all of this stuff, because you don't want to end up with stuff that you don't have coverage for.
Yeah. Okay, so we've been talking about personal liability. You were talking about dog bites. Yes, very important.
Yep, and this happens.
Cat bites. Yep.
Cat bites. If you have a little cat in the house that likes to bite or take a finger off or something, okay, because they make themselves look so tempting, they'll lie on their backs and want their belly rubbed. Hey, then you just go there and it's a trap.
It's a trap every single time. Don't fall for the belly rub.
Your pets actually, they could present liability, usually third parties, for that Dog Owners Liability Act, different things like that. There's third party issues that pets would.
A pet and pet insurance would surely be handled partially differently.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so another one that's quite important, because hey, we just talked about the Critelli's furniture and other things, and great grandma's hand-me-down, heirloom, contents insurance, possibly more important than the personal liability.
Yeah. How about an e-bike? If you got a $4,000 or $5,000 e-bike on your property, and then you go out surfing on the e-bike, and then you go back, and then somebody takes it. These things get stolen all the time.
Then you've actually covered another one, because what about jewelry? What about additional options such as
ID theft,
e-bikes, mobility devices, etc. And we can come to that in a minute. So let's look at general contents insurance. The typical sort of thing that's covered by normal contents insurance would be what, like tables and chairs and beds and
chairs, your television, your radio or stereo. So you have a home computer, but it's not like your business computer. It's just a home computer.
Yeah.
Computer games, your PS5, whatever they call them.
And each of those items, I presume that there's a difference between let's say a difference between, let's say, okay, we used them before, and we'll use the example again. I get a normal. I get a chair, cost me $3,000. A sofa, it cost me $3,000. Let's say from the Brick or Leon's or somewhere like that, right? From a normal box store, I get that kind of thing.
Yep.
But I could. Well, I really do like that one in Critelli's. I don't quite know how I'm going to pay $35,000 for it, but hey, I'm having it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There must be a difference. So contents insurance must actually have limits.
Yeah, they do have limits generally. They give you the average limit. Sometimes you can ask for more, right? Especially if you have a larger house and you're renting out a whole house compared to renting out an apartment. There's differences in what you want to have covered in terms of the amount, in terms of approximate value. Okay? But if you have specific things that are very valuable that you don't want to lose, or all you have is the right person who weighs 500 pounds and comes into your place and sits on that $35,000 chair and crunch. These are things that you have to take into mind.
Yeah. And exactly that. So the valuables, jewelry, etc., they presumably need to be declared. Now, here's a question about something. Let's say antique jewelry. We talked about great grandma's antique jewelry that comes from 1795. And the trouble with this jewelry is that every 2 or 3 years when you go to get it valued, 3 years ago it was 19,000. Last year it was 5,000.
Yeah, this is where you have to have something when you get the insurance. That's when you get it evaluated, and then you want to add a little bit too. You want to add something on. There's some way of putting it right or on. I don't know anything about it, but the insurance companies would be able to help you with that when you talk to your agent.
Well, because things like antique furniture have a value that goes up and down all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're wildly varying, and I think that's where you actually need. I don't know that either you or I are qualified to give such advice.
Yeah, these are things that I don't know anything about, but an insurance agent would know who you need to speak to about it, or what to do with it, and how much to impart on it, because they deal with this sort of thing all the time.
Okay.
Same as what they call classic cars. If you have a classic car, it might have been a cheap old car back in the 60s or 70s, but today, if it's in great shape, freshly painted, it's going to be worth a lot of money.
Yeah, it was originally bought for $297, and now it's worth $297,000.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of things like that, and these are where people would be able to know how to get the valuation of that stuff, and then you can get that and get your certification, get your thing, and that way you prove that you have these items. Then something happens to your house, it burns down, and all the things with it burn down with it. So that way you can be able to make a claim and have your proof of claim.
Okay, so there are things like additional living expenses. So if, for example, the home you rent burns down, that means you've got increased living expenses, things like needing to stay in a hotel, etc.
Yep, and meals out, different things. Yeah, transportation if you have to stay in a hotel that's in a different direction from where you go to work, whole bunch of stuff.
But a rider I would also say about that is that if your home, let's say your living room was destroyed due to whatever happens, but access to the kitchen is possible, there's an expectation by the LTB that you will actually cook meals in that kitchen if it's accessible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the LTB. That may or may not be coverable under insurance, depending on the insurance and how safe it is to get into and do that. Use that access.
That's a fair question.
Is there a lot of smoke damage in the house, for example? It may not necessarily have touched the kitchen, but if there a lot of smoke damage in that house, you're inhaling that stuff.
Yeah.
That could be toxic, and your insurance company may not want you to go in there until they at least have what do you call those rehab people? They go in and
Oh yeah, rehabilitate that. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
they've gone and cleansed the air
yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another clear problem here. You touched on it a couple of times. A tenant working from home. So, working from home in many instances, there's a wide range of things that people do, but I think a large point about working from home often is about working from a desk in an office, in a home office, on a computer normally. And that computer may belong to the employer, may belong to the worker.
Mhm.
There's different issues that relate to that as well, especially when
Yeah.
you're dealing with tenants insurance.
Yeah, and this is where there has to be some responsibility. Sometimes, if the employer tells you you're working from home and we're supplying the equipment, then if you get tenants insurance, you'll be also naming the employer as a potential beneficiary if something goes up and the equipment blows up or your room burns down and with all the employer's equipment in it. So these things you have to be careful. It doesn't go with your normal home insurance because I've done that for years where I've had a home office and they've insured my home office separately under a rider. Because
Yeah.
what happens is they will deal with all the normal living stuff and they'll help you with that. Then your home office, you might have a $10,000 computer system, and have a Mac Apple system and a great printer and all the stuff, and you're doing video editing and different things that you do, whatever your work is. Then all of a sudden that equipment, which you spent so much money for, is suddenly kaputs. And there
Right.
could be lost income. There could be, and for your business, you have to get your business insurance. You have to have business interruption insurance. It doesn't come from even the home business insurance. It
And
comes from
again,
interruption.
again, that kind of often that fire, etc., that we were talking about, may actually even come from the home computer, from that valuable computer you've just bought.
Like if you're mining for Bitcoin or something, like depends on what you're doing with that computer.
Yeah, yeah. But again, mainly, that there's riders for that, and you have to. In fact, if you're talking about working from home, even as a homeowner, you have to actually talk about riders.
Yep, as a homeowner too. If you happen to be working at home as either as a home business or if you're employed at home, like you're a
Yeah,
salesperson or something like that, that type of thing, you would have a some type of protection
and
to the same way you would as
and again, that all depends upon how many hours you work at home. If, for example, you and I, we work here, whatever hours in the week we do,
hmm
and probably what we're doing at home might well be 5 or 10 hours at home at the weekends or something,
or
in
be like what I call ancillary work, or you might have a side hustle. Hey, there's a lot
yeah.
of people have a side hustle. Hey, like say
Well,
if you have
that's
OnlyFans, you
true.
have an OnlyFans page, so you do that at home. So you got to get insured for that too.
Oh yeah, well now you've just screwed up OnlyFans. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, additional options, and I got these from because I did some research on a couple of tenant rentals today. So things like ID theft, bikes, bicycles, standard pedal bicycles, e-bikes, mobility devices, um, dog bites, and a whole heap of other things that could be under additional options you might well consider.
These is what keeps people who run insurance companies up all night, and it also keeps them. Let's put more in the pocket, more premiums in the pocket. You know, so this is what keeps them because there's different risks. And as our technology develops and as different trends in society change, different risks evolve. So this is how the insurance company also keeps up with the changes. So this is why they do this sort of thing. We have data breach insurance, business interruption insurance, different types of insurance out there that we might not have needed 20 years ago, but now
Yeah.
they have that
Oh
because
yeah.
into a standard policy for many.
And like a friend of mine, Paul K. Lemire, will basically be saying, well, e-scooters, e-bikes and that sort of thing, 90% of them shouldn't be driving unless they've got insurance anyway.
Yeah,
And
these are not insurance on the driving of
yeah,
the thing and doing
well,
damage.
he's talking about driving insurance.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah, but this is where people go driving. They go, but some of these people, they drive right in the middle of the road and they hold everybody else up.
Yeah.
But this keeps it like just in case someone steals it. You take your $5,000 e-bike and you take it down to a donut shop or something, and then you come out of the donut shop, it's gone. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually got to be the worst nightmare for anybody who's using one of these e-scooters and e-bikes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Is you go out to a donut shop and you grab a donut, which is like 3 minutes, and it's gone when you come out.
Yep, and this happens. Like my our cousins, my husband's cousin, he's had 2 e-bikes stolen, and he doesn't have insurance.
Yeah.
This is the difficulty. So this is why I tell people to think about it if you're buying one of those things, to make sure you have coverage.
Okay, here's an important question. We did say about this earlier on. You may need to name your landlord in the insurance, but why does a tenant really need to do that? Surely, if I've got my insurance, I start on the 1st of May. I start my insurance with 145 Willow Drive, and I'm there for 3 or 4 years, and then I keep my same insurance company, but now I move on the 14th of October in 3 years' time to 92 The Heights. Surely
While you're living at Willow Drive, you name that landlord, and then when you move, you get rid of that landlord and you replace it with the new landlord.
But why do I need to have a name my landlord to the insurance company? Surely that's a nonsense.
Well, the reason being is that, say if you had you just went down and bought a bunch of appliances on Kijiji, and you found this great portable dishwasher that you could put on the counter and use, and then you start using it, then somehow it starts a flame. Right? And there's a fire that starts from that dishwasher for some reason. Maybe there's an electrical problem or something, you don't know. But it comes from that appliance, which belongs to the tenant. And then what happens is the fire starts going up the walls and starts burning out part of the kitchen. Right? So that kitchen walls is not yours, but the toaster fire is yours. And it may also affect some of your other contents. So what happens is your home insurance will also interact with the landlord's landlord's insurance, and that way the landlord gets covered for the damage that's done to the wall, as well as you get coverage for anything that happened to that dishwasher thing, as well as any contents that it might have come in touch with.
Okay. All right. So there's an all-important aspect here. We've been talking about insurance, and remember, we're looking at it from the legal perspective here about why you need to have insurance, and we always talk about landlord and tenant insurance from that.
Landlords can require a tenant to have tenant's insurance.
Yeah.
They can put that in as part of their lease, and the tenant can verify this on an annual basis. And yes, the landlord can serve an N5 if the tenant neglects or refuses to do so.
And that's what I've been saying. We've been talking about the legal aspects of insurance and not actually about the insurance aspects. If you want the best price, you need to go to speak with your broker always.
I'm not around. Lots of brokers out there.
Yeah.
People you can talk to.
Yeah. I can't advise you. None of us can advise you on policy or anything like that. You
have to talk to somebody who has a background, who's licensed in the insurance industry.
Yeah, and of course, And of course, the other option that you may well have is to buy the insurance online, and that's entirely up to you. I'm not going to make any recommendation either way, and we can't make any recommendation either way. Our source is looking at the legal aspects. Okay, so there is also one other further thing there is about making a claim. Again, some elements of a claim that may well be insurable may well come to fruition as an LTB claim against the landlord or against the tenant. Other aspects of it will be wholly covered by insurance, and you really need to be speaking with a paralegal or an insurance broker in order to understand which is which and what applicability your policy has, and what the legal aspects are to any claim.
Because this is generally what happens is, like, I've had situations where I've had landlords be sued by tenants. Something happens on the property and it was the landlord's stuff. Maybe they fell down the steps or something, or something happened on the property with respect to the building itself where somebody got injured. So then they will go to the landlord and they'll try to sue the landlord. The landlord would go to the insurance and make a claim, and then the insurance would deal with the person who got injured.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens, because they make an action and they represent the person who is insured to negotiate and pay it out or whatever.
And absolutely the best thing to do there is to make a claim, speak with your broker or whoever that you manage to sort out your insurance policy with. Some aspects about that will have legal ramifications maybe down the line, but also I've got to also cover something else. Keep records of everything.
Keep records of everything you own that has any value to it. Like if you got electronics, if you got some specific jewelry, say you got a fancy expensive camera, various things that you have that you own, and have pictures of the ownership and also the receipts of when you bought it. So those types of things, put them in a safe place, maybe a safe or something at home, a fireproof safe. That type of thing would keep that protected just in case you need to use it.
Well, also the other thing is that things like cell phones themselves have value.
Yes, right? They do. Like, you ever try to replace your iPhone 15 or your Samsung 16?
Yeah.
Or 24 now? You got
24 now?
Yeah.
24.
Yeah. So, I mean, these things could be expensive, could be pricey. Yeah. So make sure all of these things are covered. Like, I'm supposed to be getting an iPhone 16. I got to see where I'm going to get it from, though.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So and I'd say with anything to do with landlord and tenant, whether you're a landlord or a tenant, keep records. Keep copious records just in case something does go wrong and you need to speak with a paralegal or a lawyer.
Yep.
Right. And that's true for any situation where legal claims may be in the offing in the future.
Yeah, right? And if you file with the insurance company and you believe that you should be covered, but they deny you, you can sue your insurance company, to have them pay the claim. And remember, you have 1 year to sue, not 2, as it is with normal claims. It's only 1 year. So you have to be very, very careful about time limits and that. That's why you need to talk to paralegals or lawyers to establish what your...
And there is no and because of that 1 year, there is no time for holy moly, that happened. No, there's no time for that.
Or going online and saying how the insurance companies, how they are getting rich off the backs of everybody.
That may well be true. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be
going. System. There is a system to deal with it. Use it and work on it.
Yeah, don't be going into your safe space and crying your eyes out for 13 months. It isn't going to help you, right? Because in that 13 months you're out of time.
Absolutely.
So get on with it. Deal with it. and probably and speak with your insurance person. And the likelihood thing is probably don't accept your the first offer.
Yeah.
There's
They
always
work
a
with you.
better
You
offer
work
down
back
the
and
road.
forth. It's a
Yeah,
conversation you have, in
yeah,
the end. And sometimes you can
yeah,
use your paralegal or lawyer to help you negotiate that.
yeah, exactly. Okay, and the point being is that all of this is about tenant and landlord insurance that we've been talking about. Obviously, some of the principles of tenant and landlord insurance may apply to other insurances that you may or may not require over your lifetime. So think about those in mind, and particularly things like keeping records. Okay.
Yeah, there was Robert asking if we missed a 1 year deadline, can we bring it back on a motion? No, this is like
No, it's
statutory deadline. It's like the
statutory
2 years.
deadline. Yeah,
If you miss it by 2 years, your statute of limitations is up.
yeah, you're done.
Yeah, so it's best that you really try to get that. The reason they do that is because witnesses, information, and everything gets lost. So they need to get this cleared up within a year.
But again,
It doesn't mean the issue is going to be finished
yeah,
within a year. Sometimes people
exactly.
are still suing, after that.
And,
But
and the point about
they need this information so they can grab it from the adjusters, grab it from different people, so they have a good, clear record of what happened, what you bought, what the insurance policy says, and then also any kind of negotiation, so that way it can do. Generally, at the end, they settle. I
yeah.
haven't seen a lot of insurance cases go
Well,
to court.
I had just to use that example, I'm talking about homeowners insurance, but I had one time, a long time ago, to go to my homeowners insurance because what happened is somebody drilled a hole in the bathroom, nicked the water water pipe in the bathroom, flooded the kitchen downstairs from the bathroom, and whilst all the taps were turned off, the control tap for the bathroom was in an unusual place. So it wasn't where you'd expect it to be. And it took a while for the homeowner to find that. And the point being is that yes, you go and you claim immediately. The insurance company is often involved in the cleanup. The insurance company is often involved in a lot of things, and sometimes the cleanup and those sort of things can take it can
Mhm.
well exceed a year,
Yeah,
maybe
like
even
I've
2 or
had a
3 years.
situation where I've had a major flood.
Yeah, yeah,
And in the basement. So I called my insurance company and said, I have a flood in my basement, and it's at least 3 or 4 feet deep,
yeah,
and it's destroyed a whole lot of things. My furnace stopped working, my hot water tank stopped working, my washer and dryer are gone. A whole bunch of things had to be fixed. So they immediately sent somebody, and actually they sent a plumber. Like it was at midnight. The guy came by to check it out, and he said, "I'll be back in the morning. I'm going to get this done." So they were very good. And then they cleared it all out. They had somebody come in and clear all the water. They took a shot back, and then the plumber went and researched what the problem was, found the problem and fixed it. And then the insurance company went back and did the rehab group to
yeah.
go in there, clean up, and get all the water out of there. And
But it's
yeah,
But the original claim has to start almost immediately.
yeah,
But
exactly.
again, any legal action that takes place in relation to the claim has to also start within the year.
Yeah, has to start
So,
within a year. Like if you can't get your insurance company to pay off or not pay off enough or whatever it is.
yeah.
Okay.
But
And then when you
almost,
sign off, that's when you sign off, and you can't go after your insurance company. So you have to be very careful that you meet
yeah.
those deadlines, and that you're prompt in reporting it.
And it's almost actually, I wonder sometimes whether it's almost worthwhile opening a lawsuit just to have a placeholder in place.
That's happened. I've done that too for people with slip and falls,
Yeah.
where I've just put the lawsuit in, and I let people know that the lawsuit's there and here it is.
Yeah.
Okay. And I said, but let's talk. Let's try to get this done. Okay. And we've done it. We've settled it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then
And
all I had to do was withdraw it.
the point being is the lawsuit's in place in order to protect your
Check your time frames.
yeah, yeah. Okay. And that's been an interesting discussion about insurance. Probably everybody's least favorite subject.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? But one that has to be tackled. Okay, so if you need legal advice, you can contact Invictus Legal, and you can do so on 905-688-5598, or you can email Angela at weareinvictus.legal, and me at Peter at weareinvictus.legal. Our website is https weareinvictus.legal, and this is Angela's favorite moment.
Yeah. And what you heard today at Spin Legal is not legal advice. And this episode or any of our earlier episodes, if you need legal advice, then please contact a paralegal or a lawyer. Okay, and then somebody can address your specific situation.
Yeah. Okay. And essentially, I think that is it for today. We haven't got any thoughts about what we're going to be doing next week. This one came up as a result of a discussion we had during the last couple of days, and I thank everybody for being here.
Yep. And send us your ideas for topics you want us to discuss. So if you can put it on here, or you can put it on our Facebook pages where we're being shown, or just send it to us at our email addresses. Hey, if you'd like to discuss this, and then we can figure out a way to get it discussed. We're going to be coming up with guest speakers occasionally and other types of things, and also seeking sponsorships. So Quintilli is the first one we're going to hit up.
All right. Our friends across the road, they're lovely people. I've got to go and experience their furniture.
Yep.
Even if I can't afford it. Yep.
Yep. Exactly.
All right. So have a wonderful day, everybody.